In the mid-1940s, most major cities across the U.S., including here in the Rio Grande Valley, had gymnasiums. However, that was not the case for Brownsville. But that changed thanks to a group of girls who, despite the war, were able to raise money for the first gym at the Brownsville School District. As Jean Fernandez, the Cameron County Historical Commissioner, tells us, it only made sense to name it after veterans and heroes of war.
Brenda, you caught me at the gym. This is not just any gym. This is a memorial gym in Brownsville that was part of the old Brownsville High School. There's a heck of a story behind this. It started at the time of the Second World War, 1942, and amazingly enough, a group of little girls with a social club in the high school started up the big dream of having a gymnasium. At that point in time, in 1942, Brownsville did not have a gymnasium. They only had the old Opera House that was down on Levee Street. They had a skating rink that was out at Fort Brown. And they had a quasi-auditorium that was involved with The Undertaker. So this was a dream that they launched. The way that these little girls came about, ending up with what we have today, is phenomenal. They set about raising money. And they spent their afternoons clubs, like the service clubs, like the Rotary and the Lions and all that, for $15 a week. 4 girls at a grouping in order to do that. By the end of that year, they had amassed about $800, which was an enormous amount at that time. But then they took on another project, and that was collecting scrap metal for the war effort. And then they raised about another $1,000 with that. Then they caught the attention of the school board at the time. The school board says, oh, this is a magnificent project. The people are all on board, and it looks as though we really need that gym. So we're going to take over the management of this project and drive it forward. They did so in 1944. Now, who was involved? Some beautiful names so far as the valley's concerned. You had James Pace, who was on the school board. Homer Hanna, again, was another president of the school board. You had Bob Martin, who was the coach, and all of those. And they lent an enormous amount of effort to bringing this gymnasium into being. All right. Then, the monumental moment in terms of when this was launched was that 1944 date when the school board adopted it, and then they started raising money from that point onwards. The end amount that they came up with, the community and all combined forces, was about $76,000 to build a beautiful gym that we have here today. Now, the name on this gymnasium wasn't just by chance. We had a war going on. That was the Second World War, and the people's hearts were tied to that war. The name came up with this group as to do a memorial to those soldiers that had fought and died in the war. Hence, you have the Memorial Gymnasium. The effort of this small little group was enough in order to build something like this out of a dream. And the rest is history. For KVEO News, I'm Jean Fernandez.